Hello and welcome back to Koala Moon, children's bedtime stories and meditations designed to make bedtime a dream. This is Guinea Pigs in Paris by Alicia Ainsley. Hamlet and Toots were class guinea pigs who lived in a hutch inside a classroom owned by a teacher called Miss Fudge. Miss Fudge was an excellent teacher, and Hamlet and Toots adored sitting in on her lessons every day, along with the children. In summer, the school closed for 6 weeks, which meant that Hamlet and Toots could go on some pretty special vacations. They'd been all over the United Kingdom on holiday. They had been to the Highlands of Scotland and the beaches of Cornwall, stayed in caravans in the Welsh valleys, and cottages in the Lake District. However, this year, Miss Fudge was taking them somewhere rather different for the summer. This year, she was taking the guinea pigs with her to France. Hamlet and Toots had never been to France before, but Miss Fudge had been there many times. Her parents lived in France and owned an apartment in the heart of the capital city, Paris. As soon as the two guinea pigs found out the location of their summer vacation, they immediately started researching the European country and brushing up on their French phrases. On the last day of school term, they packed their suitcases and prepared to leave the classroom for the summer. "Ah, Paris," Hamlet gushed theatrically. "Le Tour d'Eiffel, l'Arc de Triomphe. Le city of love. I cannot wait." Toots rolled her eyes, amused. Hamlet had been pretending he was French for days. He'd even packed a beret and a blue and white striped shirt in his little suitcase. "You must get in character too," Hamlet insisted, handing Toots a red scarf to tie around her neck and a pair of snazzy white sunglasses. Toots giggled and shook her head in defiance, but she had to admit the accessories looked quite fashionable. Maybe she would pack them in her suitcase after all. "What do you want to do in Paris?" Toots asked Hamlet sweetly. "I would love to sit under the Eiffel Tower and eat a picnic." Hamlet handed her a small piece of paper and declared proudly, "I have already made us an itinerary." Toots scanned the to-do list Hamlet had created. They would go to a bakery and eat fresh croissants, walk along the River Seine, see the Mona Lisa at the Louvre Art Museum, wander beneath the Arc de Triomphe, plus a few other touristy things. Luckily, visiting the Eiffel Tower was on the list. "Please can we add having a picnic to the list?" Toots requested sweetly. Hamlet stuck a fake curly moustache on his top lip and pretended to twizzle it as he replied in a French accent, "We'll see if we have time." At the end of the school day, Miss Fudge picked up the guinea pig cage and carried Hamlet and Toots home with her. The next morning, she packed up their passports and they rode a ferry over the English Channel to France. Hamlet and Toots had never been abroad, so when they saw the coast of France appear in the watery distance from the side of the boat, they raced around their cage in excitement. "We're almost there! We're almost French guinea pigs!" Hamlet celebrated. Toots laughed and replied, "We don't automatically become French just because we step foot in France, Hamlet." Hamlet dug his beret out of his suitcase and fitted it firmly on his fuzzy head. "Aha! But we can pretend to be French," he responded. "It is the role of a lifetime." Once off the ferry, Miss Fudge and the guinea pigs travelled into Paris and eventually reached the door of Miss Fudge's family apartment. Her parents lived on the third floor of a tall white stone building amidst hundreds of other identical apartment blocks. Miss Fudge's family apartment was spacious, with big windows that gazed out on the streets below, and there was a small iron balcony for every room. As soon as they'd settled into their holiday home, Hamlet and Toots enjoyed a cup of milk on the balcony, watching people below potter along the cobbled streets of Paris. It was blissful. C'est la vie, Hamlet announced with adoration. What does that mean? Toots inquired. It means this is the life, Hamlet answered wistfully. Toots pulled out her French phrase book from her bag. It was probably about time she brushed up on her bonjours and au revoirs, ready for tomorrow's tour of Paris. The following morning, after a delightful night's sleep, Miss Fudge, Hamlet and Toots all prepared for their day out in Paris. Miss Fudge had plans with her parents, so the guinea pigs could easily slip out and do as they pleased. Hamlet was eager to start ticking things off their Paris to-do list. He dressed in his blue and white striped top, dusted off his beret, and reapplied glue to his fake moustache, while Toots wore a pretty white dress and retrieved the sunglasses and red scarf that Hamlet had given her. She twirled in front of the mirror and admired herself. Toots looked very Parisian, if she did say so herself. Hamlet gasped and exclaimed, Toots, you look magnifique. Toots thanked him for his kind compliment, and they toddled out into the streets of Paris together. Hamlet consulted his to-do list and decided they had to start the day with croissants from a boulangerie. The guinea pigs sashayed down the street to the bakery, saying bonjour to everyone they passed. They got a few funny looks. After all, it's not every day that you see a couple of guinea pigs wandering the streets of Paris. But Hamlet and Toots didn't care. They were too pleased to be here to notice anything outside of their own happy bubble. They bought 2 fresh, flaky croissants from the boulangerie and paid with some euros that Toots had in her purse. Hamlet had been too busy learning how to act like a French guinea pig to research the details of their trip. Luckily, Toots had been organised enough to check what currency the French paid for things in and made sure she took some euros out from the bank before their trip. They walked along the River Seine as they ate their croissants, and they declared that these were indeed the best croissants they had ever tasted. The River Seine ran through the middle of Paris, and boats lazily sailed along its waters, under beautiful stone bridges, and past famous monuments. Toots gasped as she watched a boat glide by, and said, Could we take a ride on a boat along the Seine, Hamlet? It will be a relaxing way of seeing things. Hamlet referred to his list. We could, he contemplated. But if we do that, then we won't have time to tick off everything else on the list. Shall we see if we have time later? Toots nodded and nibbled her croissant. It would be a shame if they ran out of time to do everything. Instead, she imagined what it might be like to ride a boat along the River Seine. She closed her eyes and pictured herself standing at the front of the deck, holding onto the railings. The sun in the sky warmed her face, and the cool breeze flowed through her fur, wafting her red neck scarf out behind her. She looked like a movie star with her sunglasses on. and the people on the shore waved to her and took photos with adoration. Her fantasy was mesmerizing, but she was broken from her reverie as Hamlet announced that they must make haste to their next stop, the Arc de Triomphe. The two guinea pigs bustled along the edge of the River Seine and eventually spotted a tall monument in the distance. It wasn't the Eiffel Tower, but another huge historical monument, the Arc de Triomphe. The Arc de Triomphe was a majestic stone arch with images and statues carved into its surface. It was set upon a large circular platform, and cars and taxis slowly wound around the roundabout surrounding it. It was an impressive piece of architecture, and tourists walked underneath its base, in and out of the archway, admiring its artistry up close. "Can we walk up to the top of it?" Toots suggested, noticing some people standing on the roof of the giant arch. Hamlet replied, "Of course, Toots. If that is what you want, then that is what we shall do." Toots clapped her little claws with glee. They made their way up to the top of the Arc de Triomphe and paused at the balcony's edge to take in the view. From up here, the guinea pigs could gaze out over the whole of Paris. The views were sublime. Toots and Hamlet could see the roofs of all the houses and the way the river sparkled in the sunlight. Toots took a big breath of the morning air and sighed happily. She could smell freshly baked bread and delicate flower pollen floating on the breeze. Her fluffy body felt calm after walking around the streets for so long. Just as Toots was becoming lost in the moment, Hamlet said that it was time to move on. They returned to the ground, and just as they were about to walk away from the Arc de Triomphe, Hamlet stopped and announced, "Let me take a photo of you." Toots scurried to stand in the middle of the Arc de Triomphe and posed for the camera. Hamlet snapped away on his Polaroid camera and gushed, "Toots, you look fabulous, like a movie star." Toots's confidence soared, and she experimented with all sorts of poses for the camera. She liked being a guinea pig in Paris. When she returned to Hamlet's side, he showed her the small Polaroid photos that had been printed out of the camera, and she grinned. She looked wonderful. "Would you like me to take some photos of you, Hamlet?" she offered. However, Hamlet tucked his camera away in his bag and replied, "No, merci. I will only break the camera." Then the determined guinea pig led the way down the street towards the metro station. The metro was a train that ran along tunnels underneath the ground of Paris. Hamlet and Toots were fascinated by it. They had assumed that only special animals got to go underground, like rabbits and worms, but here they were, a couple of guinea pigs, riding on an underground train. "Where are we going now?" Toots asked Hamlet. He smiled mischievously and replied, "It is a surprise." They rode the train and enjoyed the chugging motion of the wheels on the track. The gentle bobbing of the carriage made Hamlet and Toots feel like they were being cradled and swayed by the students in Miss Fudge's class when they enjoyed their afternoon snuggles. It was so relaxing that they quickly drifted off for a nap, resting their heads on each other's fuzzy shoulders. After some time, the train stopped at the end of the line, and the guinea pigs hopped out of the carriage and into the metro station. "It is a good job the last stop was the last one," Hamlet admitted with a chuckle. "Otherwise, we would have missed it." Toots was still none the wiser about where they were headed next. Where could they possibly be now? They surely weren't still in the centre of Paris after such a long metro ride. When they emerged from the underground station, the sound of riveting, joyful music filled the air, and a set of large, multicoloured gates stood in front of them. 2 huge mice waved their little white-gloved hands at them and welcomed them in. It was a theme park. Toots had always wanted to go to a theme park. As if reading her mind, Hamlet reached into his bag and pulled out 2 tickets, holding them up excitedly. "Surprise!" he grinned. Toots gasped and raised her little claws to her cheeks in delight. "Quelle surprise!" she responded delightedly. Hamlet announced, "Let's go," as he guided Toots through the entrance gate. The guinea pigs had a whale of a time at the theme park, riding roller coasters, eating ice cream, and exploring fantastical make-believe lands. "This is even more fun than running in our exercise wheel," Toots exclaimed as one roller coaster zoomed them backwards around its track. The theme park was everything Toots could have dreamed of, and more. Hamlet had made a great choice by adding this spot to the list. After they had experienced their fill of attractions, Hamlet and Toots headed back to the metro, equally exhilarated and exhausted. They couldn't wait to get on the train and savour a nice long nap again. Back in the centre of Paris, Toots and Hamlet consulted their list. It wasn't complete yet, and they were eager to make the most of their day out in Paris. Who knew when they would have this opportunity again? The next place on Hamlet's list was an art museum called the Louvre. Amongst its collection of famous pieces of art, it possessed the world's most famous painting, the Mona Lisa. To enter the museum, they had to walk through a glass pyramid down to the underground vaults. It was very fancy. "The Parisians like to spend a lot of time underground, don't they?" Hamlet commented as they descended the stairs inside the pyramid. Hamlet and Toots toddled around the halls, admiring the art on the walls. Toots longed to stop and spend time at each painting, but Hamlet had only one in mind. He found the Mona Lisa and called Toots over to join him. They had to push their way to the front of a crowd, but luckily, being guinea pigs meant they could easily slip through people's feet and stand at the front. The Mona Lisa was a painting by an artist called Leonardo da Vinci, and it was of a human woman with dark hair staring out of the painting. "She looks so mysterious," Toots said, observing the Mona Lisa's half-smile. Hamlet nodded. "That's why it's so famous," he said. "Nobody knows who she is, or why she's smiling like that." Toots could have happily stayed at the museum for the rest of the afternoon, inspecting the paintings. But, as always, Hamlet was in a rush to move on to the next thing. "Allez, Toots," he ordered. "We have one more place to go." Toots sighed and trudged slowly behind him. She was particularly tired now and asked Hamlet if they could miss the last thing on his to-do list. But Hamlet took her hand, gave it a squeeze, and replied, "I promise this will be worth it." The guinea pigs left the Louvre Museum and the Mona Lisa behind to take a stroll through a beautiful green and yellow tree-lined garden. There were spurting water fountains, long grassy lawns, and pretty flower beds surrounding majestic statues. They slowly walked together, perusing the lovely things around them, and stopped now and then to admire the sights properly. It felt like the first time all day they had explored Paris at a slower pace and truly taken it in. They crossed a bridge over the river and waved to the people on a passing boat below. For a moment, with her red scarf fluttering in the wind, Toots felt like a movie star, just as she had in her earlier fantasy. Finally, they reached the Eiffel Tower, the most famous landmark in the whole of France. The tall, triangular tower was effortlessly pretty against the backdrop of Paris. The iron structure pointed into a tip towards the sky, and the hundreds of lattices that made it up looked like pretty patterns from afar. Hamlet and Toots jumped in a lift and rose to the second level of the Eiffel Tower before climbing the stairs as high as it was possible to go. At the top, they stood at the balcony's edge and looked out over Paris. It was an immensely beautiful city, and the two guinea pigs sighed with appreciation. "I think this is my favourite city in the world," Hamlet proclaimed dreamily. Toots responded, "Isn't this the only city you've been to?" But Hamlet contentedly replied, "I don't need to see any more. Nowhere could possibly top Paris." After a while they descended the Eiffel Tower. The afternoon was drawing to a close, but the sun still shone brightly in the sky. The long summer's day felt like it may never end. Toots yawned and asked if they were heading back to the apartment now, but Hamlet grinned and replied, "There's just one more thing left to do." He gestured to a lone red blanket in the middle of the grass, right in front of the Eiffel Tower. On the blanket was a wicker basket, filled with an assortment of cheese, bread, and fruit. Hamlet whispered, "You mentioned that you would like to have a picnic beneath the Eiffel Tower. So here you go." Toots almost cried with happiness. Hamlet had remembered her one request, and it was even more perfect than she could have planned herself. The guinea pigs sat down on the blanket and enjoyed their delicious picnic, whilst watching the sun slowly set behind the majestic Eiffel Tower. "Shall we take a photo together?" Hamlet suggested. Toots smiled and replied, "I thought you said you would break the camera." But this is a special moment. I want to remember it always," he answered. Hamlet pulled the camera out of his bag, held it at arm's length away from them both, and attempted to take a photo. The photograph that printed out wasn't perfect, but it was a perfect memento to remember the day with. "Excusez-moi, would you like us to take a picture for you?" a voice with a heavy French accent said over their shoulder. Hamlet and Toots turned around and their mouths hung open with surprise. A pair of real French guinea pigs stood behind them, smiling and offering out their hands towards them. Hamlet cleared his throat and tried his hardest to sound as French as possible. Merci, mes amis. That would be très bien, he bumbled, handing over his camera. The blonde French guinea pig with a sleek quiff and wearing a leather jacket snapped a photo of them before handing the camera back. Merci, Toots thanked the French guinea pig. Merci beaucoup. De rien, the French guinea pig replied, before smoothly sauntering away past the Eiffel Tower. As the French guinea pigs toddled off, Hamlet pulled off his fake moustache and whispered to Toots, "They are even cooler than I imagined." The day had been wonderfully idyllic, but the sun was starting to set over Paris, and the guinea pigs knew Miss Fudge would be back at the apartment soon. They needed to be home before she was. Checking their map, Hamlet and Toots realised that they were far from Miss Fudge's family apartment. It would take a while to get back there on foot, maybe hours. How are we going to get back in time? Toots pondered, looking around for inspiration. Their eyes surveyed the area and landed upon a selection of rental bikes parked up against an iron fence. Hamlet had an idea. "Mademoiselle, it is time to get you home," he said, gesturing to the bicycles with a flourish. Toots giggled as they scurried over to the bicycle that a woman was preparing to set off on. Toots climbed into the wicker basket at the front of the bike, and Hamlet climbed in alongside her. They snuggled in amongst the baguettes and vegetables that the woman had packed into the basket, and settled in for the ride home. As the woman started pedalling, and the bicycle wheels clicked and spun, Hamlet and Toots laid back to enjoy the peaceful ride. They would hop out of the wicker basket when they noticed they were closer to home. But for now, they watched the city fly by from the comfort of their makeshift nest. The cosy wicker basket reminded them of their comfy bed of straw back in their cage at the apartment. The tiny tourists closed their eyes sleepily, imagining that they were back home already, dozing off with the city of Paris as their backdrop. Now we're floating into a deep and peaceful sleep. Feel how your muscles are relaxing. Your arms are heavy and your legs are too, as they loosen and release any tension remaining from the day. Feel how you let your body fall into the cozy warmth of your bed. Close your eyes. Let your eyelids be heavy. Breathe deeply. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out as you continue to breathe deeply, and as you keep feeling how your body becomes soft and heavy with sleep. Let your mind drift away. That is the wonderful secret about sleep. While your body rests, lying heavily in your bed, your mind is set free, like a bird taking flight from a branch and flying up and up and up into the air. Feel how your mind loosens now like a balloon that has been untied from a fence and floats up and up and up like a bird. Up and up and up it floats towards the sky until it reaches up into the clouds. Imagine that you have risen up high above the world and your head has poked up through the clouds. Then spread out all around you in the silvery moonlight, white fluffy clouds that look like cotton wool or marshmallows. They look so soft and squishy you can lie back on them and roll around in them. Try it now. Lie back in the soft cradle of the clouds. Feel how they swirl and wrap around your body, holding you gently in the world of sleep. Clouds come in all shapes and sizes. Some are big and fluffy, some are slender wisps. Some look like puffy mushrooms, and others look like paintbrush strokes that have been left on the dark sky. Let your body relax. Let your mind relax too. Let your mind float off into sleep. You are peaceful. You are safe. You are being held in the cozy warmth of sleep. With your eyes closed, let your mind drift up, up, up and away. In the world of dreams, you can go anywhere you like. You can float on blue oceans with ripples and tufts of waves. Or you can visit castles built in the sky with spiraling turrets and drawbridges over sparkling moats. Or you can wander into the peaceful woods where the birds are twittering and the trees are dense with dark green leaves. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out again as you fall more deeply into your cozy sleep. And with your eyes still closed, take a look around with your mind at where your dreams have taken you. When I fall asleep, I dream that I've gone to a world high up in the clouds. Sometimes the clouds are dappled silver from the moonlight. Sometimes they're soft pink and gold, reflecting the light of the twinkling stars. What form do your dreams take? Where does your mind go when you fall asleep? Maybe in your dreams there are flocks of white fluffy sheep huddling together on the green fields. Look at the mother ewe yawn widely before she tucks her little lambs beneath her woolly fleece. Or maybe you dream of a friendly dragon, curled up with his tail wrapped around him, a little trail of clouds puffing out of his nostrils. Look, the cloud dragon is smiling at us and waving. What a friendly dragon he is. Or maybe you dream of cute puppies lying on their backs, their tongues lolling out of their mouths, their eyes closing because they've had such a long day. They look tired, and there's their papa dog, fluffy and white, padding softly over to wish the puppies good night. Up here on the sea of clouds, you can be free. Feel how light you are, weightless, floating, drifting through sleep. Feel everything heavy from the day lift off you and drift away, taken away by currents until they disappear over the bank of clouds. Any worries you have been having, watch them float away. Anything that has been weighing on your mind during the daytime, now you can let them go and watch them drift away. Your worries are not you. You are not your worries. You can let them go. Watch them float away. Now you are light as air. You are as gentle as starlight. You are as soft as the clouds. Up in the sleepy sky, everything is weightless and peaceful. The clouds stretch out like a sea of tranquility. Close your eyes and feel the clouds wrap around you. Feel them bearing your body gently into the land of sleep. Feel your eyes close. Feel them rest heavily as your body relaxes into sleep. Feel your mind lighten. Feel it loosen and drift away, light as a feather, soft as the clouds. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. The world of clouds is waiting for you. Let yourself fall into the clouds' soft, warm hug. They are here to protect you. They are here to cushion you. They are here to hold you as you enjoy your deep and peaceful sleep. Sleep well, little one. Sleep well in the land of clouds. Feel how light you are. Feel how weightless, floating, drifting through sleep, light as air, gentle as starlight, soft as clouds. Good night, little one. Sleep tight.